Hi there. Hello again. This is part 2 of 2 films I made concerning the Flat Earth Conference 2019. Checking out the presentations. Doing some fact checking. Yeah. So anyway, I go to the Flat Earth Conference 2019 YouTube channel when I first started making these videos, and I saw this. Yeah. Little website on YouTube there, and a nice photograph. People in an observation tower looking over what is perceived to be a flat Earth. Yeah, nice flat horizon. Beautiful picture. They don't realize they're not high enough to see the curve. They don't care. To them, the Earth is either flat or on a, well, flat. I go and I come back and make my video and get all the material together and start putting things together. So when I need more stuff, I go back to the Flat Earth Conference YouTube channel, and all of a sudden I saw this. Could it be possible the Flat Earth community is coming around? Or is it more conspiracy? Maybe the occult didn't infiltrate science. Maybe the occult is infiltrating the Flat Earth community. Oh, let's find out. Hello, I'm Johnny Glitch, and I'm on a quest for conspiracy nonsense.
Let's be clear on something. This is not a resurgence. The movement that's existing now, and yes, I dare call it a movement because back in before 2015, if you Google Flat Earth, you would get about 50 hits. But by the time, 2 years later, 12 million, okay? And then it ended up 23 million before YouTube slammed us down. So this is not a resurgence, this is a continuance. We're simply continuing what these guys did, what they tried to do in the 1800s.
1800, huh? 1800. Okay, I'll save that for a later time. But let me be absolutely clear on something when I say this is absolutely a resurgence. This can't be a continuance, otherwise the same people would just keep going and going and going and going. Same people aren't going on this. It's a resurgence. Look at the definition of resurgence. It's a revival, increased activity on something where there was little or no activity before. You just said it there, Mike. Back in 2015, you had almost no hits. Now you have, 20 million? It's such a huge difference here. It's absolutely a revival. And let me tell you why it's a resurgence. If you notice, back in 2015, the Google search volume was almost nothing. As a matter of fact, it was below the search volume for chemtrails. But look at the right after 2015. What happened? You see a spike? Yeah, it's because rapper B.O.B. said something about the Flat Earth in a tweet. He said Flat Earth conspiracy. So what happened? Boom, a spike. Yeah, unbelievable, huh? The interest starts to increase. Shortly thereafter, NBA star Kylie Irving said something about a Flat Earth conspiracy. What happens? A spike. Yeah, and it kept going. These two events is what caused the resurgence. And why? Because you have two high-profile people that say something, and everybody just jumps on and says, "Oh my God, listen to what B.O.B. said, listen to what Kylie Irving says." You got a rap artist, and then an NBA star that says something, and everybody jumps on it and says, yeah, the Earth is flat, there's a conspiracy, oh no, we got to do this. Also, here's another thing for you. Back in the Flat Earth Conference of 2017, there were interviews done on the attendees. Some of the attendees, anyway. All but one of the interviewees admitted they weren't flat earthers before this time. Not at all. You know what brought that up? They ran across YouTube videos after B.O.B. and Kylie Irving said their things. So they knew nothing of the flat earth. That's a resurgence.
All right, so what I did was I went to the Library of Congress and I did a very short, search, a simple search from and my results yielded from 1848 to 1996. These are some of the titles. William Carpenter, 100 Proofs That the Earth is Not a Globe, 1885. Walter Davenport, They Call Me Flathead. Yes, they were doing that in 1927. All right, and this guy was a newspaper. He had a newspaper stand. All right, and he was talking about flat Earth at a newspaper stand. Next.
So what kind of source do you think a guy selling newspapers would be? Would he be a credible source? Would he be someone you would look up to, and or would you look at him and say, hey, I'll take today's edition. Keep the change, flathead. Mike goes into a bunch of books that he researched in the Library of Congress. So going through the list, you see most of these books are very old. Yeah, 1800s. One of them, the 100 Proofs the Earth is Not a Globe. Here's what I found on that. Okay, so we go to the 100 Proofs that the Earth is not a globe. And you can see, you can go through the book, it's pretty nice, but look at theory number 71. This is synonymous with the entire book. This lays out what you can expect for the entire book. Let's read number 71, okay? The astronomer's theory of a globular Earth necessitates the conclusion that if we travel south of the equator to see the North Star is an impossibility. Yet it is well known this star has been seen by navigators when they have been more than 20 degrees south of the equator. This fact, like hundreds of other facts, puts the theory to shame and gives us a proof that the Earth is not a globe. This is a common myth among flat earthers. And what he doesn't realize here is that the astronomers told him it's a theory. All theories are, they have to be proven. If they're not proven, then they adjust the theory. So the author here does not address the fact that it's a theory and it can be adjusted. All he did was prove that the astronomer's theory was wrong. He didn't prove that the Earth is not a globe here. The astronomer's theory is wrong, and therefore the astronomers must adjust their theory. Also, he did not address the fact that if you go below the 20-degree mark south of the equator, can you still see the North Star? Well, the answer is no, you cannot. He didn't even address that. So if you go below 20 degrees, what does that prove? The Earth's still not a globe? No, he stops there, tells us that the theory is put to shame, and gives us proof that the Earth is not a globe. See the absurdity in this proof. The absurdity is infesting this entire book and every proof of it. It's ridiculous. So you can see how quickly it is for me to go through here. Just pick out one of the proofs and just quickly counter it, debunk it, tear it apart, and call out the absurdity of it.
Okay, Charles E. Deford, A Reparation, Universal Gravitation, a Universal Fake, 1992. Alex Gleason, most of you know him, who created the map, okay, that we all use, well, most of us anyway. Is the Bible from heaven? Is the earth a globe? 1893.
Ah, yes, the favorite map of the flat earth. Well, Gleason made the map as a projection map. Yes, he flattened out a globe to make it easier to plot long distances, tell the time between the points. It is a azimuthal equidistant projection map, and it's just an easier way to look at something from a center point. Now that center point can be moved anywhere. It doesn't have to be the North Pole. Why does it have to be the North Pole? It can be anywhere in the world. If I want Australia to be the center point, it would look like this. But what if I wanted to go from the bottom? How about Antarctica? Let's make that the center point. It would look like this. Where's your great ice wall now? Hey, everything looks the same, doesn't it? All of a sudden, there's no ice wall. Water just falls off into space, right? Gleason didn't make it to announce there's a flat Earth. He made it because it's a quick reference and easier to read than a globe.
What Michael did not cover is what was taking place. And that was all the experiments. All the experiments by who? By the heliocentrists, by the people who believed in the sphere. And they failed every single one of them. These are the most prestigious ones. We've got Airy's failure. It's not called Airy's success. It's Airy's failure. Starlight moves. The telescope remains stationary. We got the Michelson-Morley experiment. We'll talk a little bit about that. No rotation of Earth. We got the Michelson-Gale experiment. And
You know, it's almost comical the way they go back to these experiments of 100 years ago when they knew they were all failures done by people who believed the Earth rotated. They just can't get over that, can they? They love going back to these experiments and saying, see, they're all failed. They didn't prove the Earth rotates. Well, here's a fact for you. I know this has been shown many times, and many of you already know this, but every one of these experiments, with exception of the Bedford Level experiment, was trying to prove one thing. The fact that ether existed. And they all proved that ether does not exist. So it wasn't a fact of trying to prove the Earth rotated. All of these experiments shared one phrase in common, and that was the velocity of the Earth in relation to the ether was nearly zero. Does that make sense? The velocity of the Earth in relation to the ether. Now, that's all it proved. There was nothing else involved. Okay, move on.
if you guys are going to want to learn much more about these, you go to Bob Modell's talks and the famous gyroscope Netflix stuff, and he's got some amazing things that he'll talk about that.
But what we found is when we turned on that gyroscope, we found that we were picking up a drift, a 15 degree per hour drift.
What? Hey, he asked for it. He said go check out the gyroscope stuff, and, well, I did. Besides, you know, that never really gets old.
All right, so 3 points. We can actually learn where we live through photography, simple forensic editing, and eyes open common sense. All right, so let's look at the first one. I'm just going to go through 3 proofs that I shot myself. All right, so we have here ye old bolt on the horizon. Okay, so this is a real common proof here. You can play that. So I started out at 2,000 millimeter with the official flat Earth camera. All right, and Nikon actually knows that. That's why they came out with an upgrade. All right, so the official P900, I started out with 2,000 millimeter. I stopped at 50. I'm trying not to make this a photography lesson, but when you do this test, don't stop at 24 millimeter because that's not what your eye sees. Okay, stop at 50 so you won't get your dissenter saying, oh, you didn't do the experiment right. All right, so you can start at 2,000, or with the P1000, you can start at 3,000. But you stop at 50 because that's equivalent to the proportions that your eye sees, all right? Yet you see nothing, okay? The boat is not, you can't see it, but I can zoom in on it. What does that mean? No curve. Then that leaves you on a logical domino effect of conclusions. So, but we have to be willing to embrace those conclusions.
I'll tell you what I embrace, Mike. I embrace that your conclusion is you got a nice camera. That's about all I embrace. That's a nice demonstration with that camera. You can zoom in pretty good. Unfortunately, you actually proved nothing but the fact that you have a nice camera. Very nice. Zooming in on a target that you cannot see with your own naked eyes does not prove the flat Earth. I don't know how you get that conclusion. So Mike, how about you embrace this fact? Where's the bottom of the boat? Come on. You had to have known that someone like me was going to point that out, didn't you? Come on. Where's the bottom of the boat? You didn't say anything about that, did you? You skipped right over that. That's why your no-curve final shot there didn't show a boat. Didn't want anyone to see that, did you, Mike? Ah, sneaky.
All right, now we have this image, this video from the Hubble telescope. They put some of these labels on here to show the constellations and all that stuff, and they're all pagan names. Isn't that interesting?
People against goodness and normalcy. P-A-G-A-N. Pagan.
So then the Hubble telescope zoomed in, I got this straight from the NASA website, zoomed in on these constellations trillions and trillions of miles away. First of all, I didn't know the Hubble telescope was a zoom lens, all right? So then we're zooming in, but then what I did, okay, it stops here, and then we go on to the, no, don't, it's gonna continue. All right, so then I simply increased the contrast a little bit, okay? And this is the forensic part. So I increased the contrast a little bit. As you can see, as it's zooming into this constellation, you see those lines around it? Okay, so they're basically taking stills. Look at those borders. They're basically taking stills and simply enlarging them to make it look like, look at that. Okay, to make it look like they're zooming in on all these constellations that you can literally see back in time. That's what they say. We can see. Can anybody read my tag back there? Can anyone read my tag back there? No, I mean the little letters. Can you read that? Shame on you, because you can actually see constellations trillions of light years, not miles, light years. If you can do that, you should be able to read this.
Wow, Mike, I honestly believe the fine art of forensic analysis is failing here. If you didn't know, the Hubble telescope takes very, very long exposures. And then the data is transmitted to the ground where other agencies formulate an image from all of that data. Very long exposures, I'm talking hours here, are taken of a point in space. So the Hubble telescope can capture all of the light it possibly can coming from that region, or that zone, or that dot it's looking at. And it compiles all of this exposure into data and sends it to the surface for others to analyze. Now, all of this data is compiled into one massive image, so which they can zoom in on. The agencies on the ground can create a video from this. Be careful, it might be a little bit of CGI involved with the zooming in and out stuff. The video is just compiled from all those photos, but the photos themselves are 100% real. So, yeah, check it out, Hubble Space Telescope from spacetelescope.org. And it shows the Hubble Deep Fields, 10 days in the making. That's how long it took to make just the Hubble Deep Field images. And if you look right here, 10 consecutive days, the resulting image consisted of 342 separate exposures with a total exposure time of more than 100 hours. Compared to typical Hubble exposures of just a few hours. So we're talking just a few hours for one typical exposure, and that's not a deep field exposure. So this is them admitting that they take separate exposures to create one big image. It's not a secret. They're not trying to hide this. If you take the Hubble Deep Field, it's even more. Go to Extreme Deep Field. Here, over 2,000 exposures into one image. This made up of 22 days of exposure time and 50 days of observing time. So look at this and you will see that they're not hiding anything. They are combining images together, and anybody with any decent film editing software can input a whole bunch of images, and you can zoom into these images from your desktop. Now these guys have ultra high definition images, which allows them to zoom in much, much deeper than what we can do in our own desktop in our house.
So this was shot at the last Take on the World. These are called crepuscular rays, one of my favorite evidences of a close sun. So you have here sunbeams, that's called crepuscular rays, coming through the clouds. Now, according to science, the reason why you see this is because it's perspective, all right? Because you see how, you can play that. You see how you see the railroad tracks converging into the distance, right? We've all seen that. And as you move and you are no longer lined up with the tracks, you cease to see that convergence, okay? That's called a single point perspective, okay? Next. All right, now, what makes crepuscular rays? Next. You have three parts: obstruction, proximity, and particulates. The obstruction are the clouds, the proximity of the sun to the clouds, and then particulates, which is dust in the air, fog, mist, that sort of thing.
I'm going to stop Mike right there. I can't believe in November of 2019 they're still trying to push the crepuscular rays theory for the flat earth model. How many times has this been explained since 2015? The resurgence of the flat earth movement. And look at your example there, Mike. Obstruction equals clouds. Cool. This is the origin of crepuscular rays. Okay, what makes them? Obstructions, proximity, and particulates. Well, construction equals clouds, or clouds are the obstruction. Sun is the proximity? What? What are you talking about? How can proximity equal sun? You're looking at the origin of crepuscular rays. You can't have a proximity sun as part of the reason why crepuscular rays are formed. Maybe if you had a source which equaled the sun, that would make sense. But you're including one of your assumptions that the sun is close and the proximity is very close. No, you can't include your assumption in your reasoning for crepuscular rays. Doesn't make sense. So you can have obstruction, clouds, source is the sun, and particulates is the mist. That would make sense. Okay, now let's get on to why crepuscular rays are a bunch of nonsense. One word: perspective. Your eye is one single point looking at the sky above you. As you look up, you are at one single point in your eyeball. As you look out at the clouds, the perspective shows that this shadow looks or appears to be going down and below your line of sight, whereas these are going up and above you and over you. So your line of sight is causing a perspective like this over here. It looks like the sun is very close because the clouds are scattered. They're going away from you rather than the appearance that they actually are is parallel. But by your perspective, in which you guys love to use so much, your own proof is proving the cause of the crepuscular rays. It's just perception. It's an illusion. If you're so sure railroad tracks don't touch at the vanishing point, then how are you so sure that the sun touches where the rays converge? This is the way Jonni is supposed to work. Okay. Ending the video here. Okay, in 3, 2, and that's where I'm gonna end it. You know, this video went on longer than I'd hoped for, longer than I planned for. I want to thank everybody for hanging out this long. Y'all check out another video coming up. I'll have some more coming, don't you worry. Take care, guys. Be safe.